Got some moody lighting today. It's very misty, kind of moody day. But honestly, I don't even like saying that. It suggests that I'm not being honest normally. I think it's like, but let's get real. I'm I'm doing the work of embracing what is. I had a good meditation this morning, right after I woke up, like an hour long, and then I wrote afterwards. This is such a good practice. And yeah, it's a luxury to have that much time. I probably spend between the meditation and the writing probably about 3 hours. I just drink my coffee and writing two things at once actually. Kind of skipping between because writing is a it's an interesting process because you have to translate your inner world into different language, into the English language or whatever language you're using, and it doesn't necessarily translate very easily. I think, especially when we spend time in that expansive liminal state, then we really notice the discrepancy between that inner world and the regular kind of mundane consciousness. That consensus reality. I really notice it. There's like a shifting of gears. And when you're trying to bridge those realities, there's work. There's some taxing kind of work that is going on. It kind of feels like you're having to sacrifice something. I think that says a lot too. That explains why a lot of people avoid that kind of timelessness, that putting aside time to just do nothing. It's really not doing nothing. It takes a great deal of intention and focus to actually meditate properly. I have a lot of experience with this, starting meditation as a teenager, and now I'm almost 50 years old. I have a lot of experience with the whole range of it, meaning having periods where I was very disciplined every day, meditating. When I first started, not when I very first started, but probably um, within a short amount of time, I was meditating twice a day religiously, before breakfast and before supper. And very quickly I got into it. I think it's if if somebody can learn it when they're young, it's going to stay with them for life. It's going to be a practice and something that they familiarize themselves with that will take them through the rest of their life. I am so grateful. I I I I'm so grateful that I grew up in the Western world where I'm so grateful that my life has offered me these opportunities. And it's not, I don't think it's been handed to me necessarily because I have been very proactive. When nobody else really around me, it wasn't the culture, it wasn't my friends, it wasn't my family. Nobody else was doing this practice. Nobody else was interested in this stuff when I was. It's fascinating that now I think social media has helped it become quite kind of common knowledge. But I mean, there's a downside to that too, because it's reduced in a way. But I am so grateful that I was exposed to this teaching early on, a couple times. So there was kind of two seed plantings of the practice of meditation. And I ran with it. I took that practice and I took it seriously. And there have been times in my life where that practice has fallen off for whatever reason. But in that on and off, I've I've really learned the benefits of it. And even by when I was in college doing some high school upgrading, and I did English 12 again, and I wrote an essay about meditation being a positive addiction. I went into detail about that, and that with addiction, there's this kind of incentive to continue doing it. That um, if you stop, it's painful. If you continue, it's pleasurable. Um, and I should see if I can find that essay they wrote. But um, most of the time, we think of addiction as negative, but meditation is absolutely the the best practice you can have, in my opinion. I don't think there's any better because it's training of the mind, and your mind is what you live in. It's what you take with you everywhere. What meditation teaches you is this ability to flex this mental muscle, to be able to direct your attention and to withdraw it from certain areas and put it in other areas, to recognize the times when it's dispersed, the mind like a kind of a floodlight. It's got a wide range of awareness. And then other times when it's focused like a laser. And that's what you're trying to do when you're meditating generally, is you're wanting a single point of focus. And that single point of focus drills down into the deeper levels of consciousness. And you transcend the regular thinking mind. You get into this state of consciousness where you feel, you know, you 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 sense this greater capacity of the mind. You're dwelling in this deeper part of the mind that normally is only experienced during sleep. But because of that focus, this combination of relaxation and focused attention it brings us into this altered state of consciousness that is an unusual one because we don't practice it, because it's not common practice, it's not discussed. The other way to access this kind of state is through hypnosis. And hypnosis is kind of the lazy man's meditation. I don't I don't mean to disparage it in that regard because hypnosis has other attributes to it which are great, right? You can be in that altered state of consciousness, which often is very receptive. It's a kind of passive state often when you get into, um, well, often alpha and delta are more kind of passive states, although artists are often in alpha state when they're in the flow, or athletes in that flow state. Um, Theta, like beta, is more active. And theta is really the target zone for meditation, for this kind of active meditation, where there's this real sharpening of consciousness. There's this heightened awareness while in this expansive state. So, something like channeling or astral projection, where there's this clarity of mind, I think that can occur in alpha as well. But alpha is more, you might not even notice you're in an altered state. You're just having fun. You're just enjoying the moment, and it's kind of daydreamy. I think it's because it's adjacent to beta, people don't necessarily notice they're in that. So watching television, driving in a car, it'll often go into this alpha state, and it just feels good. It's just like kind of relaxed and daydreamy, and it's easy to appreciate things. You might be like, "Oh wow, the sky is so beautiful," or just a enhanced sense of appreciation. And the thing is when we regularly practice going into these states, when we intentionally go into these states, we realize we can do it on demand. We familiarize ourselves with it. And it's like somebody who's a musician and they know if their instrument is out of tune. Maybe nobody else would notice, but they notice the subtleties. And that's exactly what it's like with meditation, is that you notice after practicing it for a while, you notice the subtleties of the state of your consciousness. And you become very sensitive to those energies, those vibrations, those tones. And you can sense them in others as well. You can sense the consciousness of other people as well. I think everybody can sense the consciousness of other people, but they're not conscious that they're sensing it. They may just feel off, they may feel things are irritating them, but they don't necessarily know why. They may feel they don't like somebody, but they don't necessarily know why. But with regular practice of meditation, you become aware, you become conscious of these deeper levels of the mind. And the mind is like the ocean. It is it is vast. In fact, I think probably everything everything is within that mind, and it's not a singular mind. We share a mind. As you go deeper, it's like rivers leading to the ocean. And that's why telepathy works. That's why um, psychic communication works. That's why intuition works, is because of this interconnectivity of the mind. I believe there is only one mind. Right? There is the mind of God, and so I don't for a minute think that I've mastered my mind or I'm an expert at meditating, but I have an awareness of its vastness. I have an awareness that there's this capacity within me, and I at least know how to find the door. I at least know how to open that door and to step through it. And I know that every time that I visit that landscape, that ocean, that my capacity to explore that realm grows, and the benefits that I get from that exploration grow. And I think the benefits are limitless. I think that everything about our human lives can be improved through having greater access to this deeper part of mind. There's there's a harmonizing with a kind of blueprint, a, a deeper a deeper intelligence that is organizing everything. And when we dip into that, everything about us gets gets this refreshing harmonization. One of the things I was writing about this morning after meditating is also the difficulty of that, because it sheds a light on the things that we've kind of shelved in our subconscious mind, which is painful things, um, incongruencies, and wounds. So we become more aware of these things that the subconscious, through its mechanism of kind of protecting us, puts these things kind of into storage, thankfully, because it would be unwieldy to go about our day with all of our memories and all. I mean, especially if we think the mind has the capacity to perceive things that are much faster than a regular waking consciousness. Can you imagine if we heard all the thoughts of everybody else around us or remembered every single thing that happened to us? That would be probably pretty confusing. So it's actually amazing that we have this kind of focusing into the present time and space moment. And there's there's an there's a very interesting I think that's what the crucifixion means, actually, this intersection of time and space. And there is suffering in that because there's a loss of this expansiveness. But there is there's a benefit too. There's a lesson and a learning and an opportunity in this focusing, this learning to focus in time and space. There's this immediacy that pulls us into the moment. And yes, we try and escape it. But I think in a way, like the harshness of life, the 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 challenge of life, the survival instinct anchors us. It brings us into this immediacy. And nowadays we're 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 kind of easing out of that, right? We have more leisure time. We have more ways to distract ourselves. There's not this immediacy of survival that's required. That's pulling us into the present moment. And we find ourselves, a lot of people, quite disembodied, quite pulled out of ourselves into the future, into the past, into stories, into all sorts of dramas that actually are not immediate. So this is a transitional phase, I believe, where we are kind of the training wheels of the immediacy of survival are coming off. And we're having to become a little more responsible about our minds, about what we're focusing on. Our our field of view is expanding, where we know what's going on in other places in the planet. We know we we have a lot of information coming in, and now we need to be a bit more discerning. We need to learn the power of focus, not implemented by external necessity, but by our own necessity to cultivate our own consciousness. Because what we focus on, we get more of. What we think of, what we think about grows. Our mind, the focal point of our mind, which is centered in that ajna chakra, is like a beam, it's like a spotlight. And that center can go out of us. It can go into the past and the future, into other places. We can send that center outward. And we really identify with this center. And we're kind of lazy in a way because, we think about our eyes as being where we're housed. And it's because they are a manifestation of that consciousness center, that ajna center. They're this physical kind of representation of it. And we can see beyond ourselves, we can see into the distance. And just like that, our mind can see other places and other times and into the astral, into the imaginal realm. And the imaginal doesn't mean not real. It just is a reality with different rules. It's the fluid kind of underlying reality, the dream world. And again, this is something that we need to understand better and take more responsibility for in the thoughts that we think. We may think that our thoughts are private, but they are not really. They are sending ripples out and they are intermingling with the thoughts of other people. This is part of the noosphere, this collective mental realm, and that's described in many different philosophies and spiritual traditions. Um, but it's not woo woo. It's measurable, actually. So I think this is just trying to wrap it up. Um, this this combined practice of meditating and then writing is I think a very useful practice because it's spanning the scope of what our minds are capable of and bridging the divide, right? Going into this very kind of expansive liminal imaginal place and then bridging that into our rational, logical, analytical, familiar state of consciousness. And if we get really good at this, then we can essentially become channels of our higher self, where we're easily and effortlessly translating a broader perspective, a vaster understanding of reality, and more of ourself can come into manifestation, into embodiment. And this is this is ultimate. This is the spiritual practice, right? I mean, uh, yeah. So I'll just leave it at that. Um, but I feel like we're on a kind of cusp of that where that becomes more accessible to people. And I really, I if there's anything that I want to share with people, I think that is the fundamental thing is that having this practice, I mean, we can get all elaborate and all magical rituals and things like that, but pretty much what all we need to evolve is that fundamental practice of bridging the worlds. And it doesn't need to be all elaborate and all magical techniques and things like that, but just sitting in introspection. And sure, there's some technique that makes it easier. Techniques are great as long as they don't get in the way, as long as it doesn't get overcomplicated where the analytical mind stops us from going into that space. Because that can happen, because it can get too technical. And so learning to focus and kind of drop like a rock into that deeper state. And yes, I've used many techniques, but after a while you don't need so many techniques. It's the map, it's not the territory. And as I said before, it's great to have a map because then you do go on the adventure. If there's no map, you kind of are apprehensive. Am I doing it right? You just need those training wheels. You just need that confidence boost to do it, and that's fine. That's great. That's how I've done it. But I also have not. I don't think I've overdone the techniques. Or I've as far as meditation goes, I've really only used two techniques. I started with transcendental meditation and did that for about 10 years. And then I realized that for me, what was be- well, then I got introduced to Qigong meditation, which was very different. So TM is about transcending the physical. And I was a natural. I like to transcend the physical. But really what was best for me was an embodying meditation, somatic meditation, which Qigong is about. It's about embodiment. It's about focusing on the breath and the body and this energy in the body, not a mantra, not astral sounds that are taking you into this heightened realm. No, it's about bringing that heightened realm, focusing on the energy. Not, it's not really about thinking about bringing anything in. It is becoming aware that it is present in the body, that it is currently here. And as you notice it, as you center, then it increases, it's evoked. And it's so good. It's so pleasurable because you feel more alive, you feel more capable, you feel more powerful. And at a certain point, you need to like dial down the sense of power because, um, well, with either of those techniques, you can accidentally feed it to the ego, and that's a pitfall. But anyways, that's if you're doing a regular practice, you will get all the intuition about that. You you'll fall off the wagon, and then you'll be like, okay, I need to course correct here. I need to adjust a bit, and that's the beauty of meditation. You develop rapport with the inner guru, the inner guidance that is better than any external guru. We're in the age of the internal guru. I think that that's that is kind of um, that's kind of the pendulum swinging in a way, or the balancing to having so many resources at our fingertips. Because in a previous time, when people were uneducated, when there was no internet, there was no libraries, there was no books that people could buy at the metaphysical store. They were completely reliant on teachers to expand their world and to frame all these things, and just to create that map for them. But now we have so many maps, and we have so much information, and so many gurus, and so many people telling us what to do, that now we need to listen within to our own inner guidance and find a balance. It doesn't have to be so polarized. You can find this balance between the worlds, between the voices of others and our own. And that's how we can be discerning. That's how we need that inner voice to be able to assess the world. It's not about retreating from the world, it's about bridging. It's about bridging the inner world and the outer world, and having the best of both, and combining them and mixing them. This is alchemy, and this is the yin and yang, and this is really this is the Tao, right? This is kind of the middle path. Um, in some sense, I mean, that's the edge of what's even describable, but you you get your own footing. You find your own path when you have a practice where you build intuition. And yeah, I'll wrap it up here. It's getting pretty dark. but the light is within.